War is often remembered for its great victories, but sometimes it's the blunders that echo loudest through history. Few moments capture this better than the charge of the Light Brigade, a story of courage, miscommunication, and one of the most tragic mistakes on the battlefield, setting the stage, the Crimean War. The year was 1854, and the Crimean War was raging. On one side stood the Russian Empire, eager to expand its influence over the weakening Ottoman Empire. On the other side, Britain, France, and the Ottomans formed an uneasy alliance to stop them. For Britain, the war was about more than just protecting territory. It was about proving their power on the world stage. And in October of that year, all eyes turned to a small port town on the Black Sea, Balaclava. This was a key supply base for the British Army, and the Russians were determined to take it. The commanders and their rivalries. The British forces were led by Lord Raglan, a veteran of the Napoleonic Wars, but beneath him things weren't so simple. The cavalry was divided into two groups: the Heavy Brigade, armed with larger horses and meant to smash through enemy lines, and the Light Brigade, faster and more lightly equipped, designed for reconnaissance and pursuit. The Light Brigade was commanded by Lord Cardigan, while the Heavy Brigade was under Lord Lucan. The two men were bitter rivals, and, as fate would have it, brothers-in-law who absolutely despised each other. Their personal feud would make cooperation nearly impossible. A confused order. On October 25, 1854, the Russians attacked. They captured some of the British defensive positions on the surrounding hills. Lord Raglan, watching from a vantage point, saw Russian troops trying to remove captured artillery from one ridge. To prevent this, he sent an order through his aide-de-camp, Captain Nolan. The order read, "Lord Raglan wishes the cavalry to advance rapidly to the front, follow the enemy, and prevent the enemy from carrying away the guns." But here's the problem. Raglan could see the ridge from where he stood. Lucan and Cardigan further down in the valley could not. When they looked ahead, the only guns visible were the Russian batteries at the far end of the valley, not the ones Raglan meant. So when Lucan passed the order to Cardigan, it meant one thing: a frontal assault into a valley lined with Russian artillery on three sides. The charge begins. At around 11 a.m., about 670 cavalrymen of the Light Brigade prepared to ride. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and out of position, but orders were orders. Captain Nolan, perhaps realizing the mistake, rode at the front, only to be one of the first men killed when a shell exploded near him. Still, the brigade thundered forward. Witnesses described the sight as both awe-inspiring and horrifying. A perfect line of horsemen galloping straight into hell. Russian cannons roared. Men and horses were cut down in droves, but the survivors pushed on, riding through clouds of smoke, sabers gleaming in the sun. Against all odds, they reached the Russian artillery lines, fighting the gunners in brutal close combat. Disaster strikes. But their victory was short-lived. With no reinforcements from the Heavy Brigade, the Light Brigade had no way to hold the position. They were forced to retreat back through the same valley, again under heavy fire. By the end, the brigade had suffered over 100 dead, nearly 160 wounded, and the loss of 375 horses. Out of about 670 who rode in, fewer than half came back unscathed. Eyewitness shock and Tennyson's poem. The charge stunned those who saw it. French Marshal Pierre Bosquet, watching from nearby, famously said, "C'est magnifique, mais ce n'est pas la guerre, c'est de la folie." It is magnificent, but it is not war, it is madness. Back in Britain, news of the disaster spread quickly. Within weeks, poet Alfred Lord Tennyson immortalized the event in his poem, The Charge of the Light Brigade, with the famous lines, "Theirs not to reason why, theirs but to do and die." The poem captured the public imagination. The charge was no longer just a blunder. It was a symbol of noble sacrifice and duty, even in the face of hopeless odds. Aftermath and legacy. In reality, the charge achieved almost nothing militarily. The Russians kept their guns and the British cavalry was crippled. Investigations followed, but no one was truly held accountable. Raglan blamed Lucan, Lucan blamed Raglan, and Cardigan insisted he had only followed orders. Still, the event left a lasting mark. It became a cautionary tale about poor communication, arrogance among commanders, and the devastating price of pride and rivalry. At the same time, it became a legend of military bravery, proof of how ordinary soldiers can display extraordinary courage, even when led into disaster. Conclusion. The charge of the Light Brigade is remembered today as one of history's most famous military blunders. A simple miscommunication led hundreds of men into near-certain death. Yet the image of those cavalrymen riding fearlessly into the valley of death has endured for more than 150 years. It is both a warning of the costs of failed leadership and a tribute to the men who carried out their orders with unmatched bravery. A reminder that in war, sometimes the greatest heroism is found not in victory, but in the courage to face certain defeat. That's the story of the charge of the Light Brigade, a tale of valor, tragedy, and one of the most unforgettable mistakes in military history.